eksplozji w komendzie głównej policji zniszczenia są na 3 kondygnacjach budynku. Jak dowiedział się nasz reporter, pomieszczenia te zostały już przywrócone do użytkowania. Mamy także najnowsze informacje z dróg dla kierowców z S2 i S5. Za chwilę także rozmowa w południe w RMF FM, której gościem jest generał-major Matthew van Wagenen, dowódca operacyjny w wojskowej kwaterze głównej NATO w Europie. Pomieszczenia Komendy Głównej Policji uszkodzone w eksplozji, do której doszło w gabinecie szefa policji, już przywrócone do użytkowania, dowiedział się reporter RMF FM. Zniszczenia są na 3 kondygnacjach, od parteru do 2. piętra. Krzysztof Zasada przynosi te informacje. Krzysztofie, co to za zniszczenia?
Głównie chodzi o wyrwy w podłodze pomieszczenia socjalnego generała Jarosława Szymczyka, a także w podłodze na poziomie 1. piętra. Mają okrągły kształt, wielkość mniej więcej obiadowego talerza. Z gabinetu komendanta widać pomieszczenie ochrony budynku na parterze. Gabinet, przypomnę, znajduje się na 2. piętrze. Z informacji, które uzyskałem, wynika, że poza tymi uszkodzeniami nie ma większych strat, nie wypadły szyby z okien, nie było też pożaru. A przypomnijmy, MSWiA twierdzi, że w gabinecie komendanta wybuchł prezent przywieziony z Ukrainy. Resort nie sprecyzował, jaki to przedmiot i co spowodowało eksplozję. Nieoficjalnie natomiast wiadomo, że był to granatnik.
Uwaga, kierowcy, 3 samochody osobowe zderzyły się na trasie S2 na wysokości Warszawy. Zablokowane są 2 pasy w kierunku Poznania. Utrudnienia też na trasie S5 między węzłami Poznań-Zachód i Stęszew w Wielkopolsce. Zepsuty tir blokuje pas jezdni w kierunku Wrocławia. Mamy pierwszy medal pływackich mistrzostw świata na krótkim basenie. Brązowy medal w Melbourne na dystansie 50 metrów stylem grzbietowym wywalczył Kacper Stokowski. W finale Polak wyrównał własny rekord Polski. Złoto zdobył Amerykanin Ryan Murphy.
Istotna rozmowa w faktach RMF FM.
Rozmowa w południe w RMF FM z kwatery głównej NATO w Mons w Belgii. Grzegorz Jasiński i jego gość. Witamy.
Dzień dobry. Sir, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for inviting us here.
So welcome to the military headquarters of NATO here in Mons. This is Allied Command Operations. On behalf of SACEUR, the commander of ACO, General Quisquivoli, welcome down here. Just for your listeners out there, my name's Matt Van Wagenen. I'm the Chief of Operations here for the military headquarters that oversees the Alliance every day. But excited to have you down here and look forward to our talk here for the next 30 minutes.
We are now 10 months after the start of the Russian invasion on Ukraine. What are the lessons NATO learned after this invasion?
I think the biggest lesson that NATO had learned at Allied Command Operations had learned is the speed that we need to operate at, the tempo that we need to be able to react at. To provide the alliance the deterrence and the defense that they need. You know, our assessment down here, I think, and I think it's the nation's assessment of it is NATO did an incredible job of reacting to the 24th of February. I mean, if you look at the scope of what the alliance achieved, 4 new battle groups on the eastern flank, 1 in Slovakia, 1 in Hungary, 1 in Romania, and 1 in Bulgaria. That doubled the amount of battle groups. When I talk about the eastern flank, I talk about from Estonia down through Poland all the way down to the Black Sea. There's 43,000 NATO soldiers right now that are standing in defense of the alliance in the eastern flank nations right now. I think that the lesson learned there is is how we reacted, the pace at what we reacted. So I think that's went well, but we can't sit back on that though. That's the key thing. We have got to study of what's going on in the Ukraine, so we best can posture and set the alliance on the footing it needs to be. If we ever went into a scenario where sovereign territory was attacked.
What do we know about Russian military, which we didn't know before the invasion? Was the Russian military overestimated?
I think the bigger thing is the Ukrainian armed forces were underestimated. I think what people didn't take into account with the Ukrainians is that they had been at war since 2014 with the illegal invasion of the Donbass and the annexation of Crimea. And I think what the Ukrainians, it's what they learned. It's the leaders that they build over there. It's the army that was built over there between 2014 and the invasion and this past 24 February. They were far more capable, far more ready. What do we learn about the Russians? We learned that they attacked a lot differently to Ukraine than we thought they did. But they have learned too. They've consolidated their forces. And I think, we're 10 months into to observing a war in Ukraine. We can't underestimate what the Russians are capable of.
After years of shrinking budgets of NATO countries, some say that NATO wasn't prepared for what happened. Do you agree with this opinion? Was NATO prepared for everything what happened?
I think it's a bigger question than that. I'll stay out of the politics of it, but I will talk about the military part of this. Over the last 20 years, NATO has been involved in out-of-area operations, and Poland as a nation is supporting NATO, has been involved in that. And those are operations that have been involved in Afghanistan, Kosovo, some limited operations for NATO down in Iraq. So NATO was doing what the alliance thought was best. What we probably didn't look at is the Russians were watching NATO at the same time. They were watching NATO doing out-of-area operations, and they were building their military capacity over the last 20 years. So naturally, I think inside many of the nations, they invested in their militaries what they thought was going to be probably the wars that we were operating in, the conflicts that we were operating in, and what that may look like in the future. I think that the incredible part of NATO, if you look at the balance of investment, what's going on in many of the nations right now, they're resetting for what the current security environment is. I use Poland as an example. The military investment that Poland has made over the last years has been amazing. The M1 tanks that they've committed to buy, 250 of them. I know this week, the howitzers and the new main battle tanks from South Korea have already begun arriving. Poland's one of many nations that is posturing their military for the defense of the alliance.
Some say tanks at the moment are not the most important, but others say that the war between Russia and Ukraine is showing that tanks are important. What is the force of 250 Abrams tanks, in your opinion, as an
So I probably have bias on this because I've spent 31 years in the U.S. Army on M1 tanks, and that's all I've ever done. Listen, the death of mechanized warfare and the tank, whatever it is has been overblown. They are a necessary part of any army for what we would consider a combined arms fight. You have to have mechanized forces. You have to have tanks, and I think we're seeing that right now playing out in the Ukraine. Is both sides, the Ukrainians and the Russians, have been degraded. They're both right now actively trying to reset their force. The speed of maneuver, the tank plays a pivotal role in it. But in all fairness, the tank is part of a combined arms fight that involves everything from UAVs to air defense.
And now we are asking how NATO will replenish its armor and armament, because a lot of that was given to Ukraine. The process started. American Congress authorized buy of enormous amount of artillery rounds, rockets. What is, in your opinion, the most important part which should be replenished at the moment?
I think I'll kind of go back to the Secretary General and of NATO and my own Secretary of Defense. The defense industrial base of many countries over the last years that builds armaments. This is everything from bullets to artillery shells, to vehicles. It has been reduced across, including the United States. I think all the nations. If this is probably another lesson we've learned is we have to reinvest in our own defense industries that could produce at scale and when we need to. I think a lot of that's being done right now. But Quite frankly, the volume of munitions that have been involved in the conflict over the Ukraine, I think, is beyond the scale that anybody had ever thought of, right? So I think right now, many of the nations are looking at their own defense industries and how do they grow them again to produce stuff that is either being produced in a low volume or perhaps no volume, really. And so it's a lesson learned. I think another one, kind of off your first question.
Do you think that NATO is now in the new era? We remember NATO from Cold War. Then it was so-called
I think
peacetime.
NATO has entered a new period of collective defense. We have not been involved in collective defense as an alliance, perhaps since 1989, at the fall of the Berlin Wall. We are in a very new era, and that's what we're setting the posture for as across the alliance as we look at what does collective defense mean? What does that look like in terms of forces, in terms of plans, in terms of how we operate on a day-to-day basis? So it's a completely new security environment right now. And I think when you start talking about lessons learned and adaptation, that's what's going on right now, because we have to be ready, because that's what the nations expect.
And of course, we are in the different times that 30 years ago, because we are in the internet era. Everything is transparent because of satellites, because of drones. It's not easy to hide on the battlefield. How NATO is responding?
I think what NATO's, I think as we go into military investment amongst the nations, I think it would often be referred to now as all-domain warfare, multi-domain warfare. What that means is that takes in stuff like space, cyber. So it's bigger than just kind of land operations or air operations. All that's being taken into account right now, sitting in the headquarters you're in. I mean, when Sakir kind of, looks at the posture of NATO and how he would have to, if called upon, defend the alliance, that's being taken into account right now, and that's being, built into the plans and posture for the alliance. So I don't think we missed anything off that. If anything, probably though, right now the war over in the Ukraine has put an emphasis on how quickly we are adapting.
And what about the cyber defense, which may be the part of the securing the forces from the other part interference?
Yeah, cyber is definitely playing a large role in the security environment right now. Cyber is it's an interesting domain, of security, if you will. A lot of it is done by the nations. Cyber is one of those things. You can kind of draw a wall around the alliance. We know where the countries are, but when you start looking at cyber, the interesting part about cyber is where it derives from. If it's a cyber attack, it's hard to attribute. So this is a new part of conflict that I think all the nations are looking at. There's no easy answers on it. I can assure you this though. The alliance, cyber sits here inside of this headquarters here. Defensive cyber, it is high on the list of investments, and one of the key things we need to focus on.
For many years, Poland felt that it is some kind of a second-class NATO member, not having the Allied and American forces on the ground. It changed completely after the Warsaw Summit, and the Madrid Summit, of course, put it further. What do you think? You have about 10,000 of American troops in Poland, and they are in Poland to stay. So can we feel now that, let's say, it will not be abandoned? I
think let me talk from the alliance As first of all, and I can address, kind of the bilateral relationship between the United States and Poland too. But certainly, I'm a NATO officer right now. I'll talk about the alliance. The alliance is committed not only to Poland but the other 29 countries of the alliance, to include my own, the United States. So I think at the Madrid summit, I'll reiterate the words down there. We're not going to give an inch. That's the political direction to this military headquarters. We're not going to give an inch, and that includes every nation, but certainly Poland too. And I think actions will speak louder than words right now. If you look at what I talked to earlier in kind of the interview here, is look at the posture of the alliance right now. 43,000 soldiers committed to what we would refer to as the eastern flank. Air shielding, air policing going on in Poland, in the Baltic states, and maritime operations up in the Baltic Sea down into the eastern Mediterranean. So I think we're demonstrating right now the commitment. If you talk about the bilateral relationship, I think it is it's like this. And I served in Poland. I stood up Fifth Corps forward in Poznan, Poland, in a previous job. I was there with the rotational forces that come into Poland. The United States and Poland's relationship militarily, and it's beyond just the army. It's the air, it's the navy, is ironclad, and I think that's demonstrated every day. If you go through places like Poznan or up to the Suwałki Gap, or over to Drasko-Pomorski, you'll see thousands of American soldiers operating over there.
The part of the securing the land is the air defense. Do you think that NATO at the moment can and should better protect our space, against any rockets, against any threat from the air? Is it possible at the moment to do it quickly? Is it necessary?
As you know, many, and I won't go into the capabilities of where our systems are at or what they're doing. Air missile defense, integrated air and missile defense is commonly referred to in NATO. It's out there. It is protecting the alliance right now. Those, so that right now that is paramount. It's a paramount capability that NATO has. The nations are using. Some nations though have more than others. That's just a fact. I mean, there are different capabilities to the alliance based off the size of the country or our national investment. But certainly there is significant air missile defense protection on the alliance's eastern flank and southern flank too, in Turkey.
How important, from the point of securing the NATO countries and from the point of defensive plans of NATO, are the Russia's nuclear threats, which were formulated during the time of the war?
I mean, Russia is, they are a large nuclear power. I mean, we can't underestimate that. It's rhetoric from Mr. Putin over there, just as of 2 days ago about his nuclear rhetoric, not helpful to the security of the world. I mean, you start talking about a nuclear domain, and that threatens more than just the NATO alliance. Not helpful, but is I think we listen to it though. We listen to that rhetoric, and it's got to be taken seriously. So and it is.
You've been talking about the eastern flank, and the eastern flank is now changing because of the Finland and Sweden accession to NATO. How it will change the situation for NATO? How it will strengthen the NATO?
Sweden and Finland have been partners with NATO for many, many years. So, the relationships with NATO they are as strong as they've ever been. We're excited about the accession process, where it's going to go. What do Sweden and Finland bring? High-end military capability into the alliance. They give us what I would consider new boundaries that will add more protection to the alliance, from particularly the high north. They will be great, allies after the accession. They're great partners right now. There's long-standing relationships right now there. I think it's an exciting time. I think probably, after the accession up there, what it will do is, the high north now with Norway, that growth up there is probably, it is the protection up at the high north that NATO has needed for years inside the alliance. So a lot of excitement down here. I work with the Swedes and the Finns every day as partners. But
border will be longer, but some say that it would be easier to defend even Baltics, having the. Yeah,
I think you look at a map. It definitely will give NATO. It will put them in a better posture to do collective defense. So yeah, I mean that's kind of the bottom line on that. I think anybody that looks at that. But yeah, it's exciting times. And who would have thought, like, this is another lesson learned. You started with, 15 months ago, the talk of Sweden and Finland accession to NATO, that would have never even happened.
Let me ask you about something from your past. You've been serving in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and you've met Polish soldiers fighting there. How, in your opinion, this brotherhood of arms from that time is important at the moment for the new decisions concerning the security of eastern flank?
Poland has been a huge contributor to the out-of-area operations. I talked to in the beginning of the broadcast. Some of it directly affiliated under NATO, White Eagle in Ghazni province. Some was bilaterally with the United States in Iraq. I would just, offer this. The relationships that were built in those wars mean a lot right now. I mean, the relationships that existed prior to the start of 24 February go back now, in some case, decades. Like General Mika, your GENCOM commander up there, I knew him in Afghanistan years ago, where I served with him, and many Polish officers and soldiers. So, and you see it over in Poland right now. If you go over there, it's either NATO operations or bilaterally the U.S. to Poland, you can see the strength of those relationships and what that means now. These soldiers, non-commissioned officers now have served together in some of the worst conditions in Iraq and Afghanistan, and now together in deterrence operations. And you can't underestimate the strength of that. I mean, when I go over to Warsaw, and I'm over there working with GENCOM or OPSCOM. I mean, many of those officers I serve with in faraway places together. So the strength of that can never be underestimated. That's significant. That's significant.
In Poland, around 10,000 American troops at the moment. We've been waiting for that, and these troops are very well welcomed in Poland. But I would like to ask you a more private question concerning the American soldiers in Poland. How do they feel? What's the life in Poland at the moment for American soldiers is training and spending time after training?
Yes. I've spent up to a year in Poland. I helped put in 5th Corps forward headquarters in the Poznan, which is very welcome there. As you know, it's right in the central of the city. I think there's two aspects right up front. One is there's overwhelming welcoming feelings that the U.S. troops feel there when they're in Poland. They're treated very, very well. And you know, they're on duty there, but there's lots of off-duty time too. The American soldiers travel inside of Poland. They've developed long-standing relationships in the communities that they're at, and that's everything from, you know, having friends that they play local sports with, or the restaurants and the bars that soldiers will go to, right? And it's interesting, you know, my time serving in U.S. Fifth Corps there, a lot of soldiers now are on their second or third rotation over in Poland. A lot of them have personal friends there and Polish families that they go to dinner with, they spend time with. I mean, I've just kind of given you the deep relationships that have been developed there. But if I, categorically though, overwhelming welcome from the Polish citizens there to U.S. forces. I've never heard anything other than that. I speak as candidly as I can on that. So it's a warm place to be. Maybe cold in the winter, but warm place to be with the Poles, especially right now as the Christmas markets are going on. I mean, I remember that vividly last year. Just, I think we all know it. They're there unaccompanied, so they're far away from home, but they are at home.
I know that the military want to predict everything and prepare for everything, but can I ask you about the prediction at the moment? How long will it take? How from the point of view of military, the war will go on, and what are the possible outcomes?
The question, if you're the conflict in the Ukraine, I don't know how long it will go on. I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? Nobody knows. That, deterrence, that's what an assurance partnership, that's what the U.S. is involved with in Poland. That's going to go on. That's not, regardless of the Ukraine crisis. Those are strategic commitments and a strategic relationship between our two countries. That's here to stay. I think that's and that relationship is it's getting stronger every day, because the longer U.S. forces work with Polish forces every day, the relationships get stronger. It just builds readiness.
Now, important part is training, and once again training, because of the equipment, American equipment coming to Poland. You've mentioned that you are an Abrams guy, so please tell us how tough is to learn how to operate Abrams tanks.
It's not just a tank, it's a system. We got to think about the Abrams. It's not just a tank itself, it's everything that goes around the Abrams. There is a support structure that needs to be with it. There's a training structure that needs to be with it. It's a completely different system. I would argue it's the most capable lethal tank in the world. And right now, that training is ongoing between the U.S. Army and the Polish Army as we speak right now, with the Abrams tanks that are over there.
How long will it take for Polish tank guys to operate Abrams well?
I don't want to go into the time frame. They're operating on Abrams right now. How long does the training take and so forth? I won't go into specifics of that, but it's a complex system, right? It's like an F-16 fighter or it's anything else. You have to, you got to be, you got to, do the initial training on it, and then you've got to do the sustainment training. That means just the continuous training on it. But the Abrams is an incredible piece of equipment. In that the commitment to the U.S. To be involved in that training with Polish forces is 100% commitment. In fact, Fifth Corps has got a large role in that over there, and it hasn't changed since I left.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a great pleasure talking to you.
No, thank you for taking the time to come down to NATO's military headquarters to interview me. For your listeners out there, Merry Christmas and God bless.